This week, the battle against the financial crisis of the world's major economies continue to dominate headlines. The US subprime mortgage collapse that led to a wave of home foreclosures also set off a broader economic slowdown through the country. Now, with 3 weeks to go before American voters go to the polls, the battle to save the financial system is a key part of this presidential race.
A big night for America's presidential hopefuls. Their third and last debate caught nationwide attention. Dominating the face-off was the country's crumbling financial system.
Pursuing the same kinds of policies that we pursued over the last 8 years is not going to bring down the deficit. And frankly, Senator McCain voted for 4 out of 5 of President Bush's budgets. We've got to take this in a new direction. That's what I propose as president.
Do either of you think you can balance the budget in 4 years? You have said previously you thought you could, Senator McCain.
Senator Obama, I am not President Bush. If you wanted to run against President Bush, you should have run 4 years ago. I'm going to give a new direction to this economy in this country.
Last week saw chaos on Wall Street. Despite congressional approval of a $700 billion bailout, steep declines hit the U.S. stock market. Within a week, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell nearly 1,900 points, 18% lower than the previous week. The misery of Wall Street was reflected on faces everywhere.
Because everybody's losing money. You know, everyone thought that the market would respond more positively to a $700 billion bailout, and it would add more liquidity, which would free up the credit markets, which would instill confidence, which would stabilize things. And I think everybody's seeing the exact opposite.
I'm really scared. I'm scared because it's time for me to retire. But what future is there if you lost all your money with this time?
For some, there will be no future. A financial advisor, Kartik Rajaram, killed his 3 sons, his wife, and his mother-in-law before killing himself.
This is a perfect American family behind me that has been destroyed because of just absolute despair.
Rajaram once worked for a major accounting firm and had been part owner of a financial holding company. But he'd been out of work for several months. Rajaram's story was an extreme example of how uncertainty is affecting everyday life.
The U.S. subprime mortgage crisis has already spread from the financial sector to its real economy. Firstly, the real estate market and the stock market both suffered great downturn. People lost their money. Secondly, investments will slow down due to the credit crunch in the financial sector. As credit, investment, and spending are key parts of the U.S. economic engine, the situation is unlikely to improve anytime soon.
On Tuesday, the U.S. government announced a direct injection of $250 billion into financial institutions to help ease the credit crunch.
It'll take time for our efforts to have their full impact, but the American people can have confidence about our long-term economic future. We have a strategy that is broad, that is flexible, and that is aimed at the root cause of our problem.
The shareholders and management of Fannie Mae and
For the 2 presidential candidates, the financial crisis has different meanings.
Judgment and candor.
Bad news is good news when you're the challenger.
Neighborhood. Americans say.
Many voters may not understand why the economy is ailing, but they blame President George W. Bush. Barack Obama, whose party does not control the White House, is the default choice of the disgruntled.
McCain's got a good record, but I think Obama's got the better chance. I think we're looking for a change. We've had 8 years of the Republicans, and I think we're ready for a change.
美国大选的过程过去是这样，现在也是这样。 As usual, the political agenda of the U.S. election changes from time to time. Prior to the crisis, the national security and foreign affairs were the main focuses, in which McCain has more advantage. But now the financial crisis has spread to every corner of the country. Economic issues dominate political agenda. It's an area where the Democratic Party has a stronger say.
Many voters are blaming the incumbent party and saying that they have more trust in Obama to handle economic matters. This gives him a comfortable advantage in the polls nationwide.
You look at the status of the economy. There's a meltdown. People are angry. They are frightened. And when you have an angry, frightened public, they almost always vote against the party in the White House, sometimes by large, unexpected margins.
On this week's campaign trail, Obama and McCain tried to win voters with their economic rescue plans.
Since so many Americans will be struggling to pay the bills over the next year, I propose that we allow every family to withdraw up to 15% from their IRA or 401k, up to a maximum of $10,000 without fine or penalty through 2009, just to help tide folks over.
We should also not penalize Americans who are forced to sell investments in today's tough markets. I will increase the amount of capital losses from $3,000 to $15,000, which can be deducted from your ordinary income in tax years 2008 and 2009.
But analysts say whoever wins in November, the $700 billion bailout will make many campaign promises moot. Even without the costs of shoring up Wall Street, the next president will have to struggle with large and growing deficits.
The financial crisis is still developing, and the effectiveness of the government intervention is uncertain. But it's already weakened the U.S. domination of the world financial system. No matter who becomes the next U.S. president, he needs a period of reassessment of the U.S. financial institutions and to rebuild the credibility of its financial sector.
3 weeks ago in Manhattan, the national debt clock ran out of digits as the U.S. debt surpassed $10 trillion. 2 more zeros must be added to allow the clock to record $1 quadrillion of debt. For the next U.S. president, taking the economy in the right direction will be a daunting task.
The U.S. presidential election has been unfolding against the backdrop of an extraordinary economic crisis. The overwhelming anxiety among ordinary Americans has created widespread distrust of the government. Now, for the winner on November 4th, it's not just a matter of rebuilding the credibility of the U.S. financial system. He must also rebuild the credibility of his new government among its own citizens.